Welcome to the Conscious Dominance Podcast, where Andrew and Eric, two dominant men in dom-sub relationships, discuss how we approach our dominant roles from a conscious and loving place, and what we learn about ourselves through the deep intimacy that these power exchange dynamics make possible. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Good morning, Eric.
Morning, Andrew.
Right before I hit record here, we were just talking about how much I was saying to you, how much I look forward to having these conversations with you every week. And we've been having these weekly conversations now for quite a few months. And we decided to start recording them and putting them out there for other people to listen in on. But it really is, as you were saying, it's special to be able to have these kinds of conversations and to share them with other men.
I agree. I mean, I was saying too, so much of it is just a legitimately awesome relationship that we both have, and the structure of how does that function and how does that regenerate itself? Like, how do the challenging situations in the relationship, how is it to deal with a woman this day that's fully fledged, big, bold, badass energy woman, and navigating that, not just navigating it, but driving her.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about today is really on that topic, because a lot of guys think as you step up in your masculine, if you want to be more dominant, you want to be more in charge in your relationship and in your life. I think the mistaken assumption that a lot of guys have is that when a woman starts to become more submissive, that she's going to get quieter and softer and more gentle, which she does at times, but also she takes up some space when she starts feeling safe.
There's a lot of up. Keep going.
Just the amount of space that her energy takes up when she feels safe enough to let her guard down and really feel her feelings is something that it was unexpected for me. But I learned a lot from witnessing Dawn kind of coming alive and really growing in her expression.
Oh, 100%. And I think you eloquently spoke about that in one of the issues, one of your podcasts, where there's a little bit of this. I felt like if you were to draw, or like if there was a visual, like, whoa, it's bracing, yeah. You didn't know what you were in store for. I feel like so often women contort themselves to, especially around men that they love and respect, they're habituated to not upset them and not say everything and make sure and please them. And especially if they tend to be already submissive. And so
right.
It's
like a fear of abandonment and kind of shaping how she shows up to try to be accepted.
Exactly. And I think that so often what you've brought forth, and I feel like it's really helped in our relationship, it's been this real switch, a real paradigm switch, that is, the farther along we go, the more voice she has, the more she expresses fully and freely her desires, her wants, what the weather is. It feels very much like weather, like the weather of the day. It's like, and we can speak more about this, but if we're able to hold that, not react to it, not necessarily try to fix it, not solve it, but hold that space for that weather to come through, be present with it, feel it, not close ourselves off to it. It does a wonder of just moving the weather through. Mm-hmm. And that the art of that is literally the relationship so often. And I feel like the more farther along, the more safe she feels, the more alive, the more surrendering she is, the more she's in that state of expression. and that state. So
you mentioned holding it, and I really think that that's an important place to start, because any woman who starts to feel more submissive, who starts to feel safer and more held and more accepted for the truth of whatever she's feeling, she is going to express more. And that, I know that has required a lot of me and my ability just to, like you said, hold it, which guys hear that, like, what does it mean to hold it? Does it just mean that I sit here and get beaten up by her emotional, like, vomiting? And it really is something that takes practice to hold. And so for me, and I would love to hear how you define holding it for yourself, because for me, being able to hold Dawn's expression means that it doesn't mean that I have to do anything at all with it. It means that I need to be able to stay present with her and to receive whatever she's feeling, whatever she's expressing, without reactivity on my part, just staying present, not going into my head, not getting defensive, not making excuses, not rationalizing, not fixing, not anything else, just being all the way there and being present. And that is as simple and complicated as I can make it, to, at least for myself, to explain what it means to hold that for her, is to literally just receive it. Like, let her let go of it, and I've got it. I've got you. I've got it. I'll take it.
mm-hmm.
What would you add to that for what holding her expression means?
I mean, there's an adage of holding space. I feel, I don't know if you're familiar with people talk about set and setting and its effect on when you take a certain substances and how it impacts the substances.
Psychedelics,
the set and setting matter.
Yeah.
They affect everything, the mindset and then the setting and the capacity to hold the space. That's it. I mean, there's a lot of similarities to the two. There's a lot of similarities to holding space, where you're present with this person in the situation and you're not trying to fix them, solve them, change it, do anything, but you're really literally just holding it. But I think a prerequisite, one of the most important things, this is why heart opening is really important. I think so often men hear this and they're like, okay, I just shut myself down.
Yeah, like steel myself against it.
Like, don't say that stuff, and then you can feel it. Problem with that is when you're shutting yourself down, you're also shutting yourself down to love. You're shutting yourself down to compassion, to feeling, to the immensity that is coming through. So when you're receiving that, you're still receiving it as a negative thing, even if if it is negative, you're receiving it as negative, like you have to protect yourself from it. But if you can open up yourself and your heart, you realize that a lot of that is actually her expression is her love. Like, she's in a state, like, ultimately, you start being able to receive it as love. And it sounds pretty far woo-woo, like, how does that work? Where somebody expressing something that's all over the place, that has nothing to do with I love, is truly an expression of love. Like, it's like, here, I feel this stuff, and your capacity to hold it, I will feel your love. Like, and then all of a sudden, in that space, in that holding, it shifts, like something shifts in her, and she softens, and she's more pliant and malleable, and it's an energy that shifts. And I would say, to add to that too, there's another part of this. I have definitely been around situations where what's being expressed is completely out of bounds, completely inappropriate, completely something that not cool. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a contempt. It's vile. That holding doesn't mean you don't call someone out. You don't say, hey, not here, not now, not like that. But your capacity to do that without reacting, without adding your shit to it, can you do that from a place of strength? Can you do that in a way that's like, no, no, not like that. And just really be able to just be, even when they're coming like that, that's really truly what it is. And that it has a way of sort of softening. And sometimes I've been in situations where I can't handle it. And I know I will react. I know I will react in a way that I will regret. So I have to remove myself from the situation. And so this is where the importance of really truly feeling everything is, because if you're not feeling all of your stuff, what'll happen if you're getting, if you're closed off, that voice and that thing, something will penetrate through it and hit some nerve, some place that really hurts, and you'll react because you're not feeling it yourself. If you're not feeling it yourself and they hit you, it'll jar you so much that you're going to react and put that out there. And so I feel like a lot of this practice of holding space and really holding that actually takes the real work, and your capacity to do that well is actually being in holding space for yourself and your own pain and your own trials and your own tribulations and your own shit. When you can truly do that, then you can come back and you can hold it for someone else. Your capacity to hold space for yourself is your capacity to hold space for someone else. And in the holding space of someone else, of her, guaranteed you're going to have more things that she's going to call up. She'll find a little thing. You're not going to do it perfectly. Like, you will falter, you'll wobble, something will be off. But that's like exposure therapy. It's like there's no way to get better at it unless she's doing it. And I think it's also, anyway, before I go there, I'd love for you to respond.
Well, I think for me, one of the things in this was I had to stop making judgments about Dawn's emotion, about her expression, about her feeling, because, absolutely, we're not condoning like abusive, like verbally abusive behavior from a woman to a man when we're telling a man that he needs to be able to open up his heart and receive her expression. We're not condoning abusive behavior, but a lot of men will receive expression from a woman that's really just neutral. It's just information. It's what she's experiencing and sharing with him. If a man's got walls up around his heart and that, like, he's getting triggered and activated and pissed off and angry and defensive about what she's sharing, he might receive that as being abusive when really it's nothing of the sort. It's just her sharing the truth of how she's receiving him or life, or how she's responding to whatever's going on around her. So this is why we have to do our inner work, like you said, holding space for yourself, but healing our own pain, being able to let those walls down, lets us let her all the way in without reacting. So for me, I had to get to a point where I started to see Dawn, and not just see, but feel and experience Dawn's emotions and her expression as neutral.
Right. They're not an indictment. I think so often men take it personally. If they're feeling all this stuff, they feel like they're being indicted. Like, it's the court of the judgment. Like there's a trial and they're making their judgment. It's cast upon you. You have done this and you're not doing a good job. And then they take it and they're feeling persecuted. And so they feel they get into victim mindset.
Right. I want to add something to that before you go any farther, because that's exactly what it is. If when I started catching myself in any point of feeling defensive, of feeling like attacked by her, feeling judged by her, feeling blamed by her, when I started realizing that every single time that I felt that way, it wasn't because of what she was saying, it was because of what I was feeling in response to what she was saying. That this is 100%. My work. This is my work to do, to let go of the judgment and the feeling blamed and the feeling like all of these things that I'm feeling in response to her are me. They're not her.
100%. You know, one of these, I was looking for this book. There's a great book. Brad Stolberg talks about uncertainty. I don't know where it is right now, but he talks about in this book, times of uncertainty. How do we navigate uncertainty? Well, a woman, I'm going to say this, a woman is just uncertain, like uncertainty. If you're with times of uncertainty is your relationship. Like that's kind of the modus operandi is a time of uncertainty. So, what do I want? I don't know. So this time of uncertainty, one of the things he talks about in this is that there's two pathways in the brain. There's a rage pathway and there's a seeking pathway. And you can't be in both pathways at the same time. And so our job is to stay out of the rage pathway and come over to the seeking pathway. And I think about every time we get into feel like we're a victim, we go over to the rage pathway. So if you catch yourself being like, I'm a victim, I'm being persecuted. Oh no, she's thinking this, and you get all victim-y, and you know when you're there because you get defensive. You're explaining yourself. Your nervous system, you start ratcheting up into fight or flight. That's all heading over to the rage. And if you don't catch yourself, you're gonna keep going, and it's harder to get over here. So the key, this is where meditation, this is where doing work on your nervous system, this is where working out, pushing yourself to another limit outside of those situations, because you need that body awareness. And you're like, oh shit, I'm going in this direction. How do I come over to this direction? And I'm in a seeking pathway. In a seeking pathway, you're curious. You're literally listening to her be like, huh, that's interesting. I wonder what time of month it is. Huh, I wonder if it's related to the thing she ate last night. Or, huh, I wonder if she's feeling insecure about that. Huh, I wonder what, because it's all context. There's never one thing. It's always this, or this, or this. And one of those things might be you and something you did, but it's no more relevant than something else that happened that other month. So like if you start getting it, making it all about you, you're losing an opportunity to really deepen your understanding and deepen your capacity to love. And you're making it about yourself and some small segment of it. But if you can find out that, hey, I'm curious, maybe I did play a role in that, but that's not an indictment. The fact that she's even telling you means that she's got hope. She believes in you. She loves you. So you're in, you should be concerned when she starts closing off, being really stoic, being really masculine, having her shit together, not wanting to bring any of it to you. That all means she doesn't trust you. That all means that she does not trust you. And for a man, the number one thing is to be trusted. We want to be trusted. You trust me, and when a woman trusts you, she loves you. If she doesn't trust you, she doesn't love you. She may say she loves you, but that's not the same. And I feel like that feeling of trust. So when she's bringing your stuff to you, that means she's trusting you with it. And so you got to be able to hold that. And your capacity to hold it is physiological. Is it a reaction? Another thing that he talks about in that book is reaction or response. Are we reacting or going into this place, or are we responding? And I think that that's a really important place. And that's why it's very somatic. And that's why when you shut yourself off, you're not able to feel those things. You don't feel all of that. And you'll be more inflexible. You got to be anti-fragile. And things that are stiff are here's another great metaphor. These tall buildings that are building in New York City and all around the world, they literally build them to move. They build them so that there's a movement, so that they actually can move. That's like us. If we're not, we've got to be anti-fragile. We got to have a ruggedness to our, flexibility,
Yeah. Well, and you made a really good point there that if she trusts you with this, and she's like, if she's giving this to you, it's because she loves you, because she wants you to be connected to her. She wants to connect what she's feeling to you, so she's essentially loving you, even if she's angry at you. This was one of the big shifts for me when I had this absolute aha moment. And I told Dawn that from now on, I'm going to choose to receive everything that you feel as your love, as love for me. And she recounts this story as feeling like this permission slip for the first time in her life. for it just to be okay for her to feel whatever she felt, and to know that she had a place where she could let it all be.
Mhm.
And for me, what that did was, okay, she's angry. Instead of being judgmental about that anger and being uncomfortable with it, back to what you said, that I was able then to start approaching it with curiosity and to try to connect to what she was feeling, rather than thinking about how I was feeling in response to what she was feeling, but to really connect to her. And what I learned in opening that up and letting more of her emotional energy into me, letting all of it into me, was that all of her expression comes from her emotions. And when we talk about emotions, we're not just talking about anger and rage and frustration and all of these things that as men we're generally terrified of women expressing to us. We're also talking about her love and her adoration, her respect, her sex, her desire. Like, we're talking about the full gamut of emotions. We
Yeah, you
only
can't close one down without closing the other down.
Right, but we don't judge the ones we like. We don't judge the
Right.
ones that feel good, that get past our walls and make it into our heart and that fill us up.
Oh,
We're
it's
only
so true.
judging these ones over here.
Mhm.
And so what I started to kind of paint was this picture, this analogy for myself. Like, if you've driven through Atlanta, some of these roads are like 8, 9, 10 lanes wide in each direction. It's just like these massive freeways, right? And like, her emotional expression is like a 12-lane freeway that is just, she wants to have it driving straight into my heart, to just share everything she feels with me. And if I start putting up like road construction cones, and taking that 12-lane highway down to 3,
Yeah.
because like these 3 lanes are the only ones that I'm okay with. You can love me, you can be nice to me, and you can tell me all of the things that are great about me. Those are the emotions that are okay. But if you
Right.
are sad, if you're angry, if you're this, like those ones, those aren't okay. What I've done is I have taken down 75% of her ability to feel. And now we've got a massive traffic jam, cars backed up for miles in her heart. And now, like, she still feels everything that's back there, but now it's all clamped down, and
Well, I think
this is
that's
when
why
she starts to
gets
shape
sick.
herself. Absolutely. This is why she starts to shape shift herself and to change her expression to try to be acceptable, because she's trying to fit through this narrow pathway that you've laid out for her as acceptable. She's trying to squeeze her reality into what you will accept. And what I'm telling guys who are listening to this is, you can clear those cones out of the way and just let it all come in, let it be neutral. And instead of getting so attached to what's okay and what's not okay, you can start to feel all of it as love, because she's willing to share it with you. She's choosing you to feel with.
I think that's great. That's a great metaphor. And I've been noticing and knowing people, a number of women with chronic fatigue and autoimmune disease. And it's got me looking up and researching. And I found out that way more women have autoimmune disease than men. And it's way more prevalent now than before. Just like with men, I think a lot of the issues are despair. We sort of despair. Women overdo things. Men underdo things. You know what I
Shut
mean?
down.
It's kind of like there's a little balance. We get off, we're like not in a great space. We're just like, fuck it. Women get not in a great space and they get all more try to fix it all and get all the work. So I bring that up because the expression of their voice and their capacity to really speak, a lot of times when they're doing this energy and all this kind of, it's because actually the feeling part of them is not feeling. They're trying to get and feel a sense of safety and a sense of order and a sense of structure in their life. And they really need to feel that so that they can feel all the things that they're feeling and they can feel safe and they can feel okay.
Yeah. They're
And
trying to hold space for themselves to make
exactly,
something
but they're
safe.
literally not, they don't get it that it's an energetic thing. So they're literally in the world trying to create a space and hold a space to make that space feel better. But ultimately, what they're wanting is the energetic space of space holding that we can offer them so they can feel all that stuff and still feel safe and still feel loved and still feel the unconditional positive regard. So we literally, in our capacity to hold the feminine and hold our partners in that space, we can decrease their anxiety, decrease their feeling of the autoimmune and these sicknesses and all these different things. Like we can bring health to them and bring something to them that can feel that. And even when they're in their sickness, or allow them to be in their sickness, or allow them to be wherever they're at, hold that and hold that and hold the line and hold that space. It has an alchemical quality. It has a transformational quality to it. And I think especially as women get older, hormones and all of these things play a part in that. And one of the big things that starts to happen is that they're not going to be, there truly is, and I think we're all like this, we need other humans in our lives to love us and to support us and to be there for us. And for them to be able to surrender into that, they can't just surrender physically into that. If you want them, their physical surrender to it, you're also going to have their emotional surrender. They're going to have to be their heart surrender. All of their surrender needs to take place if you want the whole surrender. Otherwise, it's a performative. Otherwise, it's a contortion. Otherwise, it's not going to last. There's going to be this part of them that's going to resent. There's going to be a part of them that's going to be contemptuous of anything outside of these certain parameters. And so if you want them to feel wild, feel free, to feel these things, they've got to be able to bring that to you, and you've got to be able to be the thing that's the solid thing.
100%. I love the way that you put all of that, because, I'll give a couple of examples here. Dawn, as I have grown more solid and stronger, and she has learned to let go and to kind of be held in the space that I've created for her, it hasn't just been an energetic thing. It's energetic first, but the result of that has been things like, she could have easily been diagnosed with IBS, which is so prevalent in women, with all of these gut issues that women especially seem to have. That's gone. She had her whole life, and in my whole relationship with Dawn for years, she had extremely forward rounded shoulders, like almost excessively forward rounded shoulders. And there was one particular moment where she had one particularly emotionally opening experience, and she called me into the bathroom the next morning because she was looking at herself in the mirror, and she's like, "Look at my shoulders." And I looked at her, and her shoulders were down and back in a way that years of stretching and strength work and all of this work she had tried to do to help her shoulders, one day, and they never changed. They went back, and she's had a completely different posture, a completely different way of holding herself ever since, because of this emotional release. You look at pictures of her from when we got married or before we got married to now, her eyes are bigger. She holds her eyes more open. And these are just a few of the things that have changed. I could go on and on and on with all of these physical manifestations of the change in emotional reality. And I want to make sure that I say this for any women listening to this thinking, oh, this is how I fix myself. Okay, I need to do this. And then that, like, this isn't to do this to get that thing. This is a be this to receive that thing.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. That's a hard one, though. That's very Zen. Like, you're asking someone, but it's true. I mean, I see Rachel's body's changed. She's got, like, it's more feminine, like there's more curves. She's every place where there's the feminine, like her breasts are bigger, her hips are bigger, but everything is just more feminine. She just exudes. She's always exuded femininity, but she's even exuding that to another degree. It's a physiological change, and we change too. I feel like I've gotten bigger in all areas of my life. I'll just say it like that. But like, it's there is a biggerness to you. Like when you do this work, it changes your body. It's not hyperbole. Like it really does happen. I've seen it happen. I see it in front of me, and I see it. We see it all the time the other direction. I mean, our country's just filled with examples of how the body changes going the other direction. Well, it goes the other direction too. You know, when you step into your dominion, when you step into your clarity of your sense of your role in this, and you don't play the victim, and you hold her and love her in her full expression, there's physiological change.
Another analogy that I use when it comes to being able to be connected to her emotional experience and receive it is one of the river.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different ways to think about this, but the one that I want to share with you today is this analogy of her being like the water that's flowing down the river. And we as the masculine, as the dominant, we are the river banks. We are the ones setting the edge of where that water flows. How wide is it? How deep is it? And where is it going to go from here going forward? So we're kind of steering, we're directing, we're holding that energy so she can just be it. Where if she bumps up against the riverbank, the river doesn't get pissed that the water is touching the bank. It just says, nope, no farther.
Right.
That's the edge. And so holding that kind of energy of being the riverbanks for her lets her grow. It lets her be all of herself and just says, I know where the edges are. I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to, just as solidly as a river says, nope, that's the edge. That's all the farther we're going to go. Right here. It stops now.
Exactly.
There's no reactivity to that. But also, if her expression gets big, like if there's something big that happens and she has a big expression, now there's a lot of water coming down that river, she might wear those riverbanks away. That river might get wider because, oh, I just realized that I had my bank set too far in here, and her expression pouring down that river made me realize that I was clamping down too much. And all of a sudden now this river, she's worn those banks away and it's gotten wider. But guess what? I'm still the one holding the edges of it and deciding where it goes. And that river still comes out at the same place, even if she wears away pieces of me. If she wears away pieces of me, it's because they needed to be worn away, because they didn't fit how much love she had.
That's good. And you know, I just brought up the word swamp. Like if we're not careful, it can turn into a swamp. But what you're saying is sometimes we have to risk the swamp, like risk it, break ourselves down, our ego death, to keep that moving forward. And I feel like that's another part of this that I find really interesting, is that her voice, literally, it's like a built-in mechanism for ego confrontation, for growth. Like, you know what's going on with yourself because you're with her and she says something, and then you're like, oh, if you have a discipline of not taking it personally, if you have a discipline of not being defensive, but you still recognize, oh, that stung, that hurt, you don't react, you don't respond. She may feel just a little slight something from that, but if you're able to hold that, respond accordingly, but not overreact or anything, then you could take that somewhere else, and through a practice of introspection, contemplation, writing, be like, that's a place where I'm insecure. That's a place where I don't feel confident. I'm feeling vulnerable here. I can work on myself in that regard. I can accept myself there so I can improve myself.
That's also a place, Eric, where men need other men, because
exactly.
we can't
you can't
just
do this.
we
it's
can't
really,
just
really
do it
hard
all.
to do this by yourself. I wouldn't be here in this relationship if I didn't have therapy, if I didn't have men like you, if I didn't have a place to go to that was not what my woman to go to. You know, I think that's the whole caveat. And I have men come to me to get support, and I don't see how they can do it. I'm not saying I need to be the person, but they need somebody. You need somebody other than your woman to go to, because you're going to be having these breakdowns. I mean, ego deaths are little mini breakdowns. Like, you have to break down a little bit. You have
Mhm.
to, there's a dissolving quality that needs to take place. And if you don't do that consciously, I always think about this with my building metaphors. If we don't have controlled demo, we have uncontrolled demo. We'd much rather have controlled demo where we plan the demo. We know what day demo's happening. We know what day that's going to be coming down. We have cleanup crew. We're not going to try to live in the house during demo. Like, we've got this all situated. But if you don't do control demo, what happens? Men have uncontrolled demo, and it's shit's just getting real. And
It's
they
just collapse. Uncontrolled demo
collapse.
is, yeah,
Demo, they
unplanned
collapse.
collapse.
The thing's wobbly, the thing's stinky, like the whole thing. Their job, lose their job, they get cheated on, addiction, whatever the thing is, and that's their life collapsing. That's uncontrolled demo. But if you see something wobbly, we can't just ignore it. Like, sometimes you need to do the controlled demo. And what that means is we're going to have to go into a state where we're going to have to slow down a little bit. We're going to have to take ourselves out just a little bit to do the controlled demo, mental health, mental work, whatever that need is, and then have a practice of that to resolve that. And I feel like that's paramount to be able to really go back and hold your woman and lead your woman and take her to places that are farther, because the places that we're going into, the elevation that we're here, women are going to take you places that you've never been before. You don't know what they are. So if your mindset is always, I have to control things, I have to be the one that knows, you're never going to get to places, especially sexually, that blow you away. Because if you think you're the one that has to know and control the whole situation to be Dom, you're in for it. How do you create a situation where you're controlling it by not controlling it? You're controlling it by letting it be in a certain way, like letting the nature, the flow of it, the feeling of it, the energy of it, but you're staying solid. You're staying solid in it. It's being like a conductor of a orchestra. Like, you're controlling it, but you're not controlling it, right? It's like being a producer or somebody who's a coach of Kobe Bryant. Like, you're controlling, but you're not really. You're letting them do their thing. Like, this truly is, when you get to mastery, is you're not the one who's like specifically driving her and telling her there's a certain freedom, a certain wildness, a certain something that just flickers and becomes something. And if she gets into that state and you get triggered and you can't handle it because you don't feel like you're enough of a man, because you're in for it.
Because you need to be the one in charge.
Because you need to be the one in charge to control the next step and the next step and the next step. It might get something into certain sort of unbridled wildness. If you can't hold your sense of your masculinity there and you waver, like, then she's not going to trust you. So you practice for those experiences by practicing in the everyday what's for dinner experiences, where you make dinner, you tell her, and then she's like, I didn't want this, or the food wasn't this, or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Or I don't like the way you cooked it, or you put too
Yeah.
much salt on it. And like, if you get like, fuck you, I worked really hard on this.
I
right?
made my food. Like, how dare you tell me that I'm, blah, blah, blah. If you get all defensive in those moments, you're not going to be able to handle the other ones. So,
right. And that's why, again, this river analogy works really well here, because you can't be looking at the place that every next drop of water in that river needs to go if you want to be really leading the bigger picture. You got to zoom out a little bit and decide, where does this river empty into the ocean? Like, what is the ultimate end game here? What is it that I'm trying to build with this woman by loving her, by holding her, by receiving her, by giving to her, by guiding her? What is it that I want to create in my life, in her life, and with our connection and our love together? What is it that I'm building here by setting her free? And then, like Kobe, you're not going to try to retrain Kobe how to shoot a basketball. You're going to say, you know what, Kobe, I want you to be the best that's ever existed. And so that's where the water dumps into the ocean. That's the end of the river. So now my job is to help guide you so that you can just play, and I can help continue to lead you towards a place where you can be the best there's ever been. And then you are in control of the big picture, and you don't have to worry so much about like what she said about too much salt on dinner or whatever it is, because like, okay, I learned something from that. Again, approach it with curiosity, with understanding, neutrality, and just letting her be how she is.
And the other big part of this too is not being needy. You know, we work, I said not being a victim, but the other checkpoint, I kind of think of these checkpoints. It's really helpful for me to know, okay, I'm feeling this thing, that I don't want to feel that. And I don't want to feel that. And so I think victim and neediness are both the places that we want to stay away from. And so when you're feeling needy, and needy's subtle, needy can be subtle. So like if you're needing her, if you're feeling off and somehow you need her to feel better to make you feel better, or if you need her to feel better so you feel better, that's neediness. Like if you're coming into a situation where she's got this voice and it's all off and she's not doing great, it's confused, you can get into the state where you think, oh, I'll be really helpful, I'm going to solve this. But behind all that is you just being needy. You're unsettled with her unsettledness. Like you can't handle the fact that she's upset. If she can feel that it's okay for her to be upset, it's okay for her to feel disgusted by something, to whatever she's feeling, and that you don't need her to feel different to make you feel better, that's the level. And so I think that's another part of this that I really want to call out, is the frequency of being needy. Yeah. That's pernicious. And it's been really something, and neediness also gets into like, are we needing the acclaim and the approve of others? Like when I go out into public, do I need people to react to me in a certain way? Or when I'm putting out content or when I'm doing anything, you know, truly being an artist, to be an authenticity is a really important part. And this goes back to this, you know, a lot of this work that people are doing when they're about children and how these things are coined into, you know, Gabor Mate speaks really eloquently about this with the balance between being authentic and getting love, and getting love from our parents, and how we sacrifice our authenticity to get love from our parents and approval. And as you get older, if we get into this place where we're sacrificing our authenticity to get love from her, that's neediness. So literally, like, we have to be authentic to ourselves and our truth, even if it upsets her. Like, this is the next level mastery, is like, if you're really in charge, you're not trying to please her all the time. You literally know that you're going to upset her. Like, you will upset her. She's not going to like it. Otherwise, you're just doing what she wants you to do. So your true leadership is you being able to be authentic to what the need is in the moment, and being able to ride through whatever wave she's feeling, and being like, I'm here for the long term, not the short term. There might be something in the short term, but I know this is best for you right now. I know this is best for me, and driving that forward.
And this is why we have to, as men, do the work to get underneath our reactivity, because there's no way to know the difference between having an authentic, genuine need, like this is something that's important to me, and this is something that I am going to have in my life because I value it and it means something to my authentic experience as a man.
Right.
And like, to know the difference between that and
being a victim,
but just like trying to have some void filled by manipulating her to be different so that she does the thing that makes me feel better, like makes my wounded inner little boy feel better.
Exactly.
Like that's another way of describing the difference between having a need and being needy. But we can't see that because it all feels like having a genuine need until you have done the work to get underneath your reactivity, to get underneath your defensiveness, because it is that, like, the defensiveness and the reactivity and the short temper and the like anger outbursts and the shutdowns, all of this stuff is evidence that there's a void in me and there's pain in me that I'm trying to protect against. I can't have that hurt. I can't have that touched. So I can't tell you what it is, but I'm going to try to be sneaky and manipulative and hide things and say half truths and whatever.
And you
And
know,
this
when
is
you're
what,
telling, yeah,
well, that's what she sniffs out, right? A
yeah,
submissive woman is an absolute bloodhound for that kind of weakness, because guys think that opening up and doing this work is like making them weak. That is, the weakness
opposite.
is the protection that you carry around from feeling pain. And she sniffs that out. And it's why it feels like she pokes it so much. It's why you feel so much like you're getting attacked by her, because she senses subconsciously that there is something in you that's not solid and she can't trust it. And so there's something in her that'll just find it and poke at it until
Right,
you see it.
right. And this is why I really believe in this. There is this identity that we hold to who we are. And if we don't really go and examine who we are underneath all of our identities that we think we are, that identity is often fragile. And when someone comes and tries to create a new identity, or that identity dissolves, we dissolve. And in that dissolving, we can't lead from that. And so we're so afraid to have that dissolve that we try to tell her what to do and control. We don't want to have her voice because that'll come up against some wound or something like that. The true mastery is that when we've done this work and we know where our wounds are, we know where those things are, we're going to be impervious to that because we've already got you. I got you. Like if someone's saying something and we already done that and we know, it's like, yeah, you're right. I am a piece. Like, and then if it's false and it's a lie, we're not going to get hurt, especially if it's just her to me. She's not announcing it to the world. She's just telling you, and it's full of shit. Like, who cares if she's telling you something that's full of shit? Like,
Nothing can hurt you if you know it's not true. It's I
exactly.
saw
And
somebody
if it
say this
is
one
true
time.
and you know it and you've already done the work, you're like, yeah, you're right. That is true. Like
Yep.
that, nothing like that to just like deflate her when she's like, you're like, yeah, I did do that. But not from a like a needy, like I need to shift her or change her or do any of that. And this is why her having an expression and a voice is not something like, oh, wouldn't that be nice if she did? Or that's an important part of this. Like it's the central part of it. It's like you're not doing this unless she's got a voice. If you've got a girl and you think you're being a dom and she's not expressing herself and her fullness and her voice, you've got a slave for the weekend. And that's going to last only so long before she just gets flatter and flatter and flatter and flatter, and she's not going to trust you. You can do that. Like people have done that and they've had slaves, and maybe that's your kink and maybe that's your whole thing and that's it. But you're not going to have a woman that's going to grow over time to regenerate. That as she ages, as she gets older, she gets more beautiful, she gets more sexual, she gets more vital. That regenerative quality cannot happen when you don't have a voice. And you won't be able to grow. You won't be able to express. You won't be able to be in your fullness with yourself. And when I say my expression, taking that somewhere else where I'm learning about myself, I'm on this journey. Like if it's already done, like here's this person, and we're controlling all the inputs and outputs. That's a closed system. That's fucking entropy. It goes to a bad place. We don't want a closed system. We want something that's an open system so that it doesn't go to entropy. We need a regenerative quality to it. We need syntropy. We need something that expands and improves. The only way to do that is to bring in elements that we don't want, that affect us, that we can alchemize, that we can transform, that we can do the work to bring us into another place. That can only happen if she has a voice, where we literally turn the negative into a positive.
Well, and we allow that breaking down to open us and expose us to ourselves on a deeper level so we can see more of the truth, because really her expression is the emotional expression. And this is where like the romantic comedies and Disney movies and like everything that taught us what it was supposed to be like to be a good man to a woman were just completely fucked, because it was all about these guys pouring their hearts out. But our expression is not an emotional expression. It's an expression of consciousness and truth. It's seeing the truth, speaking the truth, and then setting a direction and a path for your life, for hers, and for your relationship together to align yourselves more with the authentic truth of who you are and who she is, being able to see that through her expression. being able to feel her and see into her. Like, what is it that actually makes her come alive? Not what she thinks is right for her, not what she has not maybe what's always been the thing that she's done or the way that she's been, but really, what is it that makes her glow and sparkle and just come alive with that energy of Eros, that erotic aliveness that a guy can feel? Like, you can walk past a woman in the grocery store and see on her face if she's just there.
Yeah.
Right? You
Oh,
know it,
100%.
you feel it, and it's rare, which is why it stands out even more. And the only way that she got that way was by learning to express herself. But by being able to feel what brings pieces of that alive in her energy and see that as truth, like, this is where our expression is. It's by being those riverbanks and saying, this is what's right. Like, look at this about you. Look what I see in you. You can maybe think that I'm wrong, but you can feel that I'm right, because I see the way that it makes you come alive. And you
Right.
start to set a path for her life that aligns her more with the things that make her come alive, which is going to mean less of the things that put her in her head and less of the things that maybe drain her of energy, because she gets so stuck in having to be in control and indecisiveness and all of these things that get women spinning in their heads, which no woman is turned on and excited and alive for life when she's stuck in her head. She has to be present in her body. The only way for her to get present in her body is to be landed there, to be living in alignment with her truth. And we are the expression of truth as the masculine. That's our job. Like, that's what our expression is. It's not pouring our feelings out. It's about setting a path and a direction and taking action. That's how we express ourselves, by taking action. And again, this isn't by fixing her. This is by seeing her and feeling her and guiding her. It's not about fixing her. There's nothing wrong with her. She's fine. She's not broken. She just needs to be heard and felt and received, and then loved enough to be guided. And you have to be able to be strong enough and connected enough to your own sense of truth. Again, the reason you have to do your own inner work, so that you can see this deeply in her, not react to what she's saying, so you can receive it and feel it and connect to a path for her life and yours together that makes everything better.
Well said. You know, one of the things when you just said that she doesn't need to improve or get better or do any of this, but you do. Like, this is the thing. It's not fair. Like, it's not fair.
It's not supposed to be fair.
Not supposed to be fair. The man in this relationship has to improve. Like, I have to get better. She does not. And that's like kind of a soundbite, but the feminine in a dom sub relationship doesn't have, her improvement is literally to stop improving, to stop being in the driver's seat of her self-improvement. You do need to improve. You do need to get into this place. The way this happens, though, it's built into the structure. Her expressing herself, her being in that, and you being able to hold that, and yet still maintaining authority and control. Literally what happens is you do improve, and she does improve too. But she improves in a way that she's not the one driving that improvement. She may be expressing the improvement. It will be a byproduct of it. She'll look backwards and be like, wow, I'm in a different place. I'm in a new place. And then,
she's a reflection of you. She, like,
exactly,
everything that she is.
I spent a year in this relationship with Rachel being like, this is not fair. This is not fair. I have way too many things that I need to improve. Not that she told me this, but she, in wanting and desiring in a relationship such as this, and me coming to realize what was in store for me, what did I need to do, how did I need to improve, me being so aware and taking inventory and stock of all of the different things that have like kept me from rising to my occasion, kept me from being the man and my potential. It was a lot. It's like being out of shape, but in every part of your life, financially out of shape, physically out of shape, emotionally out of shape, spiritually out of shape. And I'm telling you, the hardest thing for a man, I think, as we get older, why we can't sit with the gap between our potential and our reality. And that gap freaks us out. And we literally distract ourselves. Porn, addiction, all this stuff. So we don't feel the gap between the potential that we have and the reality of our life. But if you could sit with and hold and pay attention and just sit with yourself for a fucking minute and see that and hold yourself and not fall apart and just be there with it and just be like, dude, you're okay. We got you. We can keep going. That's the beginning. Like, that's the beginning. You can't begin if you can't even show up to the gym. Like, you can't begin if you don't show up and put some tennis shoes on. And I mean that metaphorically and literally. Like, you have to be able to do that. If you're going to do this kind of relationship, I'm just telling you, like, it's not cut out for most men because they don't want to actually face the reality of their life. They don't want to look in the mirror and see all the shit and bullshit that they are. All the ways they're full of shit. Because guess what? If they can't do it to themselves, she's going to do it to them. He's going to falter, and then he's going to blame her and think it's all her fault and get pissed, and then he's going to react, and the shit's going south, and then it's a slippery slope to abuse. Because if you have this level of control, this level of authority as a man with a surrendering, submissive woman, and you don't do your work, and she has a voice, in a second, you can turn that into abuse. You can be abusive. You can do things that are dark, and not dark in a good way, not dark in a kind of like shadow, let's do our work, kind of like that kind of good kind of dark, but in an unconscious kind of way. You bring an unconscious attitude, and that's where consciousness is so important to this, because when you bring unconsciousness to it, it can turn slippery into abuse. And that's why I'm so passionate about the boundaries and the parameters, and all of this it's in us. We have to be here doing this. And this is what you literally are called conscious dom. Like, consciousness, whole consciousness starts with looking in the fucking mirror and seeing what that in taking stock and inventory and being able to sit. And you might have to be like, lady, I can't do this right now. I literally was like that. I said, I can't be in a relationship like this. I need 2 years out. I got to switch my life around because I actually am not, I want this, but I got some work to do first.
Well, so there's a book by a Jesuit monk named Anthony DeMello called Awareness.
Yeah.
And in one of the first chapters of that book, it's actually it's somebody wrote out some of his speeches at like a conference or a retreat. I think it was a retreat. And so this book isn't actually something he wrote. It's a written account of what he said out loud. But he said that this awareness, you don't actually want it.
No.
Like, you might think you want it. You might think that this consciousness thing sounds like the path that you want to take in your life, but you actually don't want this, because it's going to call you on the carpet for every single thing about yourself that you don't want to see.
Yep.
And it's going to make obvious to you that you actually don't know a damn thing. And this is where guys get so tangled up, because they're so afraid of being out of control that they don't realize that they're being controlled by their own fear, that they're being controlled by their own pain. And they are just trying to grab onto something. And if you make that thing that you grab onto her, now you're just crushing another spirit with your own pain. But this is why deep intimacy is such a beautiful path to consciousness, if you can really commit to it. And there is nothing like a dominant submissive dynamic to bring you into deep intimacy if you're really willing to see all of the things we talk about here. If you really want this, you might think you do. You might think you want the result of it, which is a woman who will follow you anywhere, who will say things to you like Dawn said to me on one of our last podcasts, that I would be a fool not to follow you anywhere you lead me. You might think you want that from a woman, but what you don't know is how much shit you're going to have to wade through in yourself, and how much of hers you're going to have to hold in order to get to a place where she can not just say that to, like, to your point, to be like your kinky slave for the weekend, but to actually mean it, for that to be real, and for you to know that when she says it, that she means it, to have that level of respect from a woman, that level of trust. You might think you want it, and like, every single guy, I believe, can have it, But
And you can't
boy,
do it. I want to say
you
this too. You can't do it for her.
mm-mm.
You can't do it to try to get her to be like that. You can't do it to be like, oh, I want a woman like that. That's my goal. You want to create the conditions where that's inevitable. You're creating inevitability with it. But you do it because the satisfying, you can look in the mirror, you can die. Like literally what you're doing is creating a situation that if someone, I'm on my deathbed right now, I'm like, okay, I did. I'm here.
Did
I'm ready
everything
for
I
it.
could.
And yeah,
Yep.
I faced this. I saw this. I saw this, man. That's way more valuable than any woman. And this is where, like, this is another part of this. We didn't talk about this, but you got to be at a place where you transcend the relationship. It's, yeah, we're on a podcast talking about relationships and everything, but once you start listening and figuring it out, you're like, oh, it's not about the relationship with her. It's about the relationship with you. And it's about learning how to love you and how to being an inner dom to you and being satisfied with yourself for you and not needing her approval, not being needy of that, not needing her to feel better. And when you get to that place, then you become power. Then you become dominant because you're the authority. You're the author of your own divinity. You become consciousness. You become a conduit of that. And your ego is not there running interference on that consciousness. That work, though, like you said, I love that you brought up that that awareness. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. It's not pretty. It's not enjoyable. It sucks. It
Yep.
if it doesn't suck, you're not doing it. Like if it isn't you sitting with parts of yourself that you if you don't feel suicidal at moments, if you don't feel like you're going to literally pull your hair out, you'd rather somebody just like chop your arm off than feel what you're feeling, you're not going far enough. Like that you have to feel the pain of your absolute pathetic, measly little piece of shit ass nothingness that you are, that you don't mean shit. And you sit with that kernel of that feeling and yet not completely kill yourself or avoid that feeling. Coming out the other side, there's something. It's a meditation. It's literally why people when monks go to spaces and go sit in the dark for a long time, or people have these retreats or go in cold plunges or do all this stuff. Like the point of it all is to take away everything, to literally feel the pain that is the underlying ambiotic music that is our life. You need to feel the pain that every human is in, that you are in, that we're all in, and not be afraid of feeling that pain and to sit with that and not fall apart and not try to get out of it. That's it. Because when you can do that, then whatever she brings to you, you're like, that ain't nothing.
Yeah. And like you said, you can't do it for her, but what you
You
can
can't.
do if you commit to really deep intimacy and awareness is you can do it through her and you can do it
Exactly.
with
She
her.
becomes the catalyst.
Yep.
And it's just this, it's like you become in a practice. It's a practice. It's almost like saying, I'm going to join the monkhood. They got it wrong when they had the priest, they got it all wrong. You literally should be like, this is the point. Like, this is what it's all about.
The priest needs a highly expressive, alive
None.
woman.
It does.
None.
You want to grow. You need that nun with you. You need to be able to raise that up, you know?
Catholics, you can reach Eric at. No, this is a great place to kind of wind this up, because that is the whole point of drawing out all of this expression and drawing out this emotional bigness in her. Is it's what will bring you it'll bring you face to face with all of this that you need to see, if you can allow it and you can let her feel it and express it and let it in. So, like, again, guys, you want a woman who's going to submit to you, who's going to follow you, who's going to go where you want her to go and do what you tell her to do, and you want it to be real. Like, this is what you're asking for, everything we're talking about here. And it's going to hurt. And all the things Eric said about the pain and everything, like, that's real. And it's not going to be fun, but it is worth it, right?
Well, and there's a lot of fun to be had with her. I don't want to, when I say it's not fun, I'm talking about when you're by yourself, you're doing that work.
Mhm.
And there are times with her that are not fun, but majority of the time, it's fun beyond fun you can even imagine. Like what's in store for you is heaven on earth. Like it truly is. It's whatever you can imagine can happen.
Well, thanks again for joining us here today, joining me. I love, every week it seems like we uncover something new together. So I appreciate you being here for this with me.
Oh, I appreciate you, Andrew. Thank you very much. Thank you.